Dull. I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from. They say you don't know what people really think of you until you're gone. I found out the hard way by listening to my own daughter celebrate my death while I lay broken in a hospital bed 2 floors below. My name is Margaret Sullivan, but most people call me Maggie. I'm 68 years old, and until a year ago, I thought I knew my daughter. I thought I knew what our relationship meant. I was wrong. Let me take you back to the beginning, to the day everything changed. It was a Tuesday morning in October when I boarded Flight 447 from Seattle to Portland. The leaves were just starting to turn, painting the trees in shades of copper and gold. I remember thinking how beautiful everything looked from my window seat. Row 23, right over the wing. I'd been visiting my friend Dorothy in Seattle. She'd just lost her husband to cancer, and I couldn't let her face that first month alone. That's the kind of thing you do when you're my age. You show up for people. You don't wait for an invitation. You just go. My daughter Victoria, Tori we call her, hadn't been happy about the trip. "Mom, I have clients coming this week," she'd said on the phone, her voice tight with irritation. "I was counting on you to watch Emma after school." Emma, my granddaughter, 17 years old and the light of my life. "Tori, honey, Dorothy's husband just died. She needs me. And I need you too, Mom, but I guess Dorothy comes first." That conversation had haunted me the entire trip. I'd tried calling Tori back twice before my flight, but she hadn't answered, so I left a voicemail. "Sweetheart, I'm getting on the plane now. I'll be home in 2 hours. We can talk then. I love you." She never called back. The turbulence hit 40 minutes into the flight. At first it was just a few bumps, the kind that make your coffee slosh in its cup but don't really worry you. The flight attendant was halfway down the aisle with the beverage cart when the captain's voice crackled over the intercom. "Folks, we're hitting some rough air. Flight attendants, please take your seats." Then the plane dropped. Not a little dip, a real drop, like someone had cut the strings holding us in the sky. My stomach lurched into my throat. The woman next to me grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. Overhead bins popped open. Someone screamed. The oxygen masks dropped. I remember reaching for mine, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grab it. The plane was tilting now, listing to the left at an angle that couldn't be right. Through the window I saw the wing. The metal was bending, actually bending in ways it wasn't supposed to. "Brace, brace, brace." The flight attendant's voice was high and sharp with fear. I put my head between my knees. I thought about Emma, about her laugh, the way she still hugged me tight like she did when she was little. I thought about Tori, about our last conversation, about all the things I should have said but hadn't. Then we hit. They told me later that Flight 447 went down in a ravine near the Canadian border. 121 passengers. 87 died on impact. I wasn't one of them. My row 23, tore away from the fuselage during the descent. We tumbled down the ravine wedged between a Douglas fir and a shelf of ice-covered rock. The tree saved my life. It also broke 4 of my ribs, cracked my pelvis, and gave me a concussion that left me unconscious for 18 hours. When I finally opened my eyes, I was staring at fluorescent lights in a hospital room that smelled like antiseptic and old coffee. "Mrs. Doe." A nurse's face appeared above me, young and concerned. "Can you hear me?" I tried to speak, but my throat was raw. I managed a nod instead. "You're at Providence Medical Center in Portland. You were in a plane crash. Do you remember?" I nodded again. Everything hurt. Everything. "We don't know who you are yet," she said gently. "Your purse was lost during the evacuation, and you didn't have any ID on you. Do you think you can tell us your name?" I opened my mouth to answer. "Margaret Sullivan." That's what I meant to say. But before I could form the words, another nurse burst into the room. "Lisa, I need you in 412. Patient's crashing." The young nurse, Lisa, gave me an apologetic look. "I'll be right back, honey. Don't try to move, okay?" She rushed out, leaving her phone on the counter by my bed. And that's when I heard it. The phone buzzed. Once, twice. Then it started ringing, the volume turned up too loud. I couldn't reach it. Couldn't even lift my arm more than a few inches. So I just lay there listening to it ring. Then it stopped. A moment later, I heard a voice. Female, familiar, cheerful. My daughter's voice. Hey, sorry I missed you. Listen, I'm at the lawyer's office right now. You won't believe this, but Mom's plane crashed. She's dead. My heart stopped. I know it's terrible, Tori continued, but her voice didn't sound terrible. It sounded excited. But here's the thing. The house is mine now, and the life insurance. And get this, I already called a realtor. He thinks we can list it by next week if we move fast. I couldn't breathe. The machines around me started beeping, but I barely heard them. The best part, no more walking on eggshells. No more having to explain every decision. No more guilt trips about not visiting enough or not being grateful enough or whatever she was upset about that week. There was a pause, then a laugh. A real, genuine laugh. I'm sorry, I know that sounds awful. But Lisa, you know how she was. Always controlling everything. Always making me feel like nothing I did was good enough. I mean, I'm 42 years old and I still felt like a kid every time she walked into a room. My vision blurred. Not from the concussion, from tears. Anyway, I gotta go. The lawyer wants to start probate proceedings. I'll call you later. We should celebrate. Drinks at Francesca's. The call ended. I lay there in that hospital bed, unable to move, unable to scream, unable to do anything but listen to the sound of my own heart breaking on the monitor beside me. My daughter thought I was dead, and she was happy about it. Nurse Lisa came back 10 minutes later, slightly out of breath. Sorry about that, hon. Now let's see if we can get your name and... She stopped staring at her phone on the counter. Oh shoot, did someone call me? I looked at her. Really looked at her. She was young, maybe 25, with kind eyes and a wedding ring that looked too big on her thin finger. She didn't know I'd heard everything. Didn't know that her phone had just delivered the worst news of my life. I made a decision in that moment. A decision that would change everything. My voice came out as a whisper, barely audible. I don't remember. Lisa's expression shifted to professional sympathy. That's okay, honey. You hit your head pretty hard. Sometimes memory comes back slowly. We'll figure out who you are, don't worry. But I wasn't worried about that. I was thinking about what Tori had said. About the house, the life insurance, the realtor, about how quickly she'd moved on. The plane manifest lists several people as missing presumed dead, Lisa said, checking her tablet. Once we get your fingerprints or dental records, we'll be able to identify you. How long? I whispered. How long until what, honey? Until you figure out who I am. Lisa shrugged. Could be a few days, could be a couple weeks if things are backed up. But don't worry, you're safe here. We'll take good care of you until your family comes. My family. I closed my eyes. Okay. They moved me to a quieter room the next day. The doctor said I was stable but would need at least 6 to 8 weeks of recovery before I could walk without assistance. My ribs would take 3 months to fully heal. The concussion would resolve on its own, but I needed to rest. I had plenty of time to think. Lying in that bed, I replayed Tori's phone call over and over in my mind. Every word, every inflection, that laugh. I'd given her everything. After her father David died 12 years ago, I'd been both mother and father to her. I'd helped with the down payment on her first condo. I'd paid for her MBA when she got laid off at 38. I'd watched Emma every single day after school for 3 years when Tori was getting her interior design business off the ground. I'd never asked for thanks. That's what mothers do. They give, they sacrifice, they show up. But somewhere along the way, my giving had become expected, and then resented, and finally just invisible. Always controlling everything, she'd said. I thought I was helping, thought I was being supportive, but maybe... No, I stopped that line of thinking. Because even if I had been too involved, even if I had been overbearing or critical or whatever Tori thought I was, that didn't justify what I'd heard in her voice. Relief, that's what it was. Pure relief that I was gone. On the third day, a man in an expensive suit came to see me. Mrs. Doe. He had the kind of polished shoes that squeaked on linoleum and a briefcase that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. My name is Richard Bartlett. I'm with the airline's legal team. I didn't say anything, just watched him. He sat down in the visitor's chair, setting his briefcase on his lap. I know you're recovering and I don't want to disturb you, but I wanted to reach out personally about the crash. Why? My voice was stronger now. The doctor said that was a good sign. The airline wants to do right by the victims and survivors, he said smoothly. We're offering settlements to avoid lengthy legal proceedings. It's better for everyone. Faster, less stressful, more private. How much? He blinked clearly, not expecting me to be so direct. Well, that depends on several factors. Your injuries, your age, your dependents. How much for someone like me? Richard shifted in his seat. For someone with your injuries and demographic, we're looking at approximately $12 million. The number hung in the air between us. $12 million. More money than I'd ever imagined having. More money than I'd ever needed. There are conditions, of course, Richard continued. You'd need to sign a non-disclosure agreement. No interviews with the press, no lawsuits, no public statements about the crash or the airline's safety record. You want my silence. We want to make this right for you, he corrected, but we both knew what he really meant. I looked at him for a long moment. I need time to think. Of course, take all the time you need. He pulled out a business card and set it on the table beside my bed. Call me when you're ready to discuss the details. After he left, I picked up the card. Richard Bartlett, Senior Legal Counsel. $12 million to stay quiet. I put the card in the drawer of my bedside table and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in Portland, my daughter was probably meeting with realtors, pricing out my furniture, deciding what to keep and what to throw away. She thought I was dead. The airline thought I was a Jane Doe. Nobody was looking for Margaret Sullivan. For the first time in my life, I was invisible. And maybe I thought that wasn't such a bad thing. I spent the next week learning everything I could about what Tori was doing with my life. The nurses left newspapers by my bed. I read every obituary page. On day 4, I found it Margaret Ann Sullivan, 68, of Portland, Oregon, died October 15th in the Flight 447 crash. She is survived by her daughter Victoria Sullivan and granddaughter Emma Sullivan. A private memorial service will be held. In lieu of flowers, donations may be made to the American Heart Association. That was it. 34 words to sum up 68 years of life. No mention of how I'd volunteered at the food bank every Thursday for 15 years. No mention of the scholarship fund I'd set up in David's name at the community college. No mention of the garden I'd tended for 30 years, or the quilts I'd made for each of Emma's birthdays, or the Sunday dinners I'd cooked for anyone who needed a home-cooked meal. Just a private memorial service will be held. I wondered if Tori had even held one. Nurse Lisa became my inadvertent spy. She was a talker, the kind of person who filled silence with chatter about her life, her problems, her friends, including apparently my daughter. My friend Tori is going through such a hard time, she said one afternoon while checking my vitals. Her mom just died in that plane crash. Can you imagine? I kept my face neutral. That's terrible. It is, but you know what she's being so strong about it. She's already back at work getting her design business really going. She says it's what her mom would have wanted, for her to keep moving forward. How do you know her? Oh, we met at yoga about 6 months ago. She's amazing. So put together, great style, really driven. She's going to redo my whole apartment once I save up enough. I bet she is, I thought. She's actually throwing herself into this new project, Lisa continued, oblivious. She's rebranding her whole business. New name, new office, everything. She says sometimes you have to burn down the old to make room for the new. My ribs ached. Not from the crash, from rage. That's quite a philosophy. Right, I thought so too. She's even got this new website going up. Victoria Sullivan Interiors, from loss to renewal. Isn't that beautiful? She says her mom's death taught her that life's too short not to chase your dreams. I closed my eyes. I need to rest now. Oh, of course, sorry I talk too much. My husband always says, she caught herself. I'll let you sleep. After she left, I lay in the dark and tried not to scream. On day 10, I did something I probably shouldn't have done. I called my lawyer. Robert Chen had handled my will, my estate planning, and my taxes for the past 20 years. He was 73, semi-retired, and the most discreet man I'd ever met. Bob Chen's office. His assistant Karen answered on the second ring. Karen, it's Margaret Sullivan. Silence. Then Mrs. Sullivan. But we were told you... I know what you were told. Is Bob available? This is urgent. 10 minutes later, I was on the phone with Bob himself. Maggie, his voice cracked. Dear God, Maggie, is it really you? It's me, Bob. Where are you? Are you hurt? Why haven't you contacted anyone? I took a breath. Because I need to know something first. What is my daughter doing with my estate? Another silence. Longer this time. Bob. Maggie, maybe you should come to my office. We need to talk in person. I can't. I'm recovering from the crash. Just tell me, please. I heard papers rustling, then Bob's heavy sigh. She filed for expedited probate 3 days after the crash. She's claiming she's the sole heir and requesting immediate access to your accounts. On what grounds? She says there are no other living relatives, no contested claims, no reason to delay distribution of the estate. What about my will? Your will is clear. Everything goes to her and Emma, but there's a process, Maggie. It usually takes 6 to 12 months. Tori's lawyer is pushing for 30 days. Who's her lawyer? Marcus Webb. He's aggressive, not particularly ethical, but very effective. I processed this. What about the house? Bob was quiet for a long moment. It's already listed. What? She put it on the market yesterday. Listed it as estate sale motivated seller. The asking price is 15% above market value. I felt like I'd been hit by the plane all over again. Bob, I need you to do something for me. Anything. Delay the probate. Not obviously, just slow things down. Missing paperwork requests for additional documentation, whatever you can do legally. Maggie, what's going on? I'll explain everything, but not yet. Can you do this? Yes. And one more thing. I need to know everything Tori does. Every email to the estate lawyer. Every document she files. Every transaction. Can you arrange that? You want me to monitor your own daughter. I want to know the truth, Bob. The whole truth. He was quiet for so long I thought he'd hung up. Then, okay, I'll do it. But Maggie, whatever you're planning, be careful. I'm always careful, Bob. That's what worries me. 2 weeks after the crash, they moved me to a rehabilitation center. It was a cheerful place, all pastels and encouraging posters about taking one step at a time. I shared physical therapy sessions with stroke survivors and people recovering from hip replacements. Nobody asked too many questions about why I was there or who I was. I told them my name was Margaret Emerson, my grandmother's maiden name. I told them I was alone, that I'd moved to Portland recently, that I didn't have any family. They believed me. Why wouldn't they? I was just another older woman, invisible in the way society makes us when we reach a certain age. I learned to walk again slowly. The physical therapist, a patient woman named Monica, worked with me every afternoon. You're doing great, Margaret, she said as I shuffled down the parallel bars for the 20th time that week. Most people with your injuries need way more time to get to this point. I'm stubborn, I said. That's the best quality you can have in rehab. But it wasn't stubbornness that drove me. It was rage. Clean, cold rage that burned steadier than any motivation speech could inspire. At night, when the other patients were asleep, I'd check my phone. A new one Bob had sent me through a courier. He'd been sending me updates. Email from Victoria Sullivan to Marcus Webb attorney. We need to move faster. I've already had to pass on 2 properties because I can't access the funds. Can we claim some kind of hardship exemption? Response from Marcus Webb. I'm working on it. The estate lawyer is requesting additional documentation. It's unusual but not unheard of. Give me another week. Email from Victoria Sullivan to Deborah Lang, real estate agent. Any bites on the house, I'm willing to go down to market value if we can close quickly. I need this done. I read each email twice, memorizing them. Tori wasn't just selling the house because she thought I was dead. She was desperate to sell it, which meant she needed money. I had Bob do some more digging. Turns out Tori's interior design business, the one I'd helped her start, the one I'd funded through her divorce and lean years, was hemorrhaging money. She'd rented an expensive office downtown, hired 2 employees she couldn't afford, spent thousands on marketing and branding. She was 3 months behind on her business rent. Her personal credit cards were maxed out. The only thing keeping her afloat was the modest income from the few clients she did have. She needed my estate. Not just wanted it, needed it. No wonder she'd been so quick to move on. On week 3, Bob sent me something that made my blood run cold. It was an email from Tori to Marcus Webb. I've been thinking about what you said about Mom's mental state before the crash. Maybe there's something there. She'd been forgetting things lately, getting confused. I have some texts where she repeats herself. Could that help move things along? Marcus's response. Possibly. If we can establish that she wasn't of sound mind in the weeks before her death, we might be able to argue that any recent changes to her will or estate planning should be invalidated. Do you know if she'd made any recent changes? Not that I know of, but she could have. She was secretive about her finances. Let me look into it. If we can establish diminished capacity, it could expedite everything. I stared at that email for a full minute. She was going to claim I was senile, incompetent, not of sound mind, all to get her hands on my money faster. I wasn't hurt anymore. I was past hurt. I was in a place I'd never been before, a place of absolute clarity. I called Bob. I want to accept the airline's settlement offer, I said. Maggie, are you sure $12 million is a lot, but if you negotiate, I'm sure. But I want two things. First, complete confidentiality. My name doesn't appear anywhere. As far as the world knows, I'm still dead. Done. And second, I want you to set up two things for me. A trust for Emma that Tori can't touch, and a foundation. A foundation for what? For women like me, I said quietly. Women who gave everything to their families and got erased for it. Women who are invisible. Women who need someone to see them. Bob was quiet. Then, what are you going to call it? I thought for a moment. The Sullivan Foundation for Women's Independence. I like it. When do you want to start? As soon as the settlement clears. And Bob? Yes. Not a word to anyone, especially not Tori. I wouldn't dream of it. The settlement took 2 weeks to finalize. $12 million transferred into an account under the name Margaret Emerson. The airline was happy. I was silent. Everyone won. Except Tori didn't know she'd already lost. Bob set up Emma's trust exactly as I specified. She couldn't access it until she turned 25. She had to be financially independent from her mother. Proof of separate residence, separate bank accounts, no co-signed loans or shared credit cards. And she had to meet with Bob in person to hear the terms directly from a recording I'd made. I wanted her to understand why I'd done this. I wanted her to know that even when I was gone, really gone, I was still protecting her. The foundation took longer to establish. Bob helped me file the paperwork, set up the board myself, Bob and 3 other members I'd chosen, and create a mission statement. The Sullivan Foundation would provide financial assistance and legal support to women over 50 who were rebuilding their lives after loss. Whether they'd lost a spouse, a home, a career, or just their sense of self, we'd help them stand back up. I thought about all the women I'd met in the rehab center, all the older women I'd seen struggling at the grocery store counting pennies, all the women who became invisible after a certain age. I was doing this for them. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't also doing it for revenge. 8 weeks after the crash, I was strong enough to leave the rehab center. I rented a small apartment 3 hours outside Portland in a town called Evergreen. It was the kind of place where nobody asked questions, where you could start over if you needed to. The apartment was simple, 1 bedroom, a small kitchen, a living room with a view of the mountains. I bought furniture from thrift stores and garage sales. I hung the wedding photo, the one I'd rescued from Tori's dumpster, now with a new frame, above my desk. I looked at David's face every morning. I'm doing this for us, I'd tell him. For everything we built, everything she's trying to erase. I imagined he'd understand. On a cold November morning, I drove back to Portland for the first time. I parked across the street from my old house and just looked at it. They'd already changed so much. The hydrangeas I'd planted the year after David died, gone replaced with ornamental grasses. The front door I'd painted sage green last spring, now a trendy gray. The wind chimes Emma had made in 2nd grade, vanished. Even the mailbox was different. A young couple walked up the front steps hand in hand. A realtor met them at the door. Not Deborah Lang, but someone else. They disappeared inside. My house, my home for 35 years. And strangers were walking through it like it was just another property. I sat in my car for 2 hours watching people come and go, watching my life get bought and sold. Finally, I saw her. Tori pulled up in a silver Audi I didn't recognize. She stepped out wearing a white blazer and designer sunglasses, looking every inch the successful businesswoman. She talked to the realtor, smiled, laughed at something, checked her phone. She looked fine, better than fine. She looked happy. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Then I saw Emma. She climbed out of the passenger side, moving slowly. She'd grown since I'd last seen her, taller, thinner. She was wearing jeans and a sweatshirt, her dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, and around her neck I could just make out the glint of silver. The locket. She was still wearing the locket I'd given her. Emma stood on the sidewalk staring up at the house. She didn't move when Tori called to her, just stood there, arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold something in. Then she turned. For just a second, she looked right at my car. I don't think she could see me through the tinted windows, but for that brief moment, I felt like she was looking directly into my soul. "I'm here!" I wanted to shout. "I'm right here, baby girl. I never left you." But I didn't. I couldn't. Not yet. Emma turned away and followed her mother inside. I started my car and drove away, but I knew I'd be back. End of Part 1. Word account 504. To be continued. What would you do if you were in Maggie's place? Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Comment below and let me know the city you're watching from. Chatty. 3 months had passed since the crash. 3 months of watching my daughter dismantle my life piece by piece while I stayed hidden in the shadows. The house sold in December right before Christmas. The young couple who'd been looking at it that day made an offer. $15,000 below asking price. Tori accepted immediately. Bob sent me the closing documents. I read them in my apartment, sitting at my small kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had gone cold. Sale price $485,000. Seller estate of Margaret A. Sullivan. Proceeds to be held in escrow pending probate resolution. At least she couldn't touch the money yet. Bob was still holding up the probate process, requesting documentation, filing extensions, creating bureaucratic delays that kept everything frozen. But Tori had found other ways to get what she needed. I discovered the credit cards first. Bob's investigator, a discreet man named Frank who looked like somebody's grandfather, had been tracking Tori's financial movements. One afternoon he called with information that made my stomach turn. "Mrs. Sullivan, I found something you should know about." "What is it, Frank?" "Your daughter opened 3 credit cards in the estate's name. She's using your social security number, claiming authority as executor." "Is that legal?" "Technically, she's in a gray area. If she's genuinely paying estate expenses, it's allowed, but..." "But what?" Frank sighed. "She charged $8,000 at Nordstrom last week. Another $3,000 at a spa resort in Scottsdale. That's not estate business, Mrs. Sullivan. That's fraud." I closed my eyes. "Keep documenting everything." "Yes, ma'am. There's one more thing." "Tell me." "She's been calling the hospital, Providence Medical Center. She's trying to get information about Jane Doe patients from the crash." My blood ran cold. "What did she say?" "She told them she's trying to track down a family heirloom, a necklace that might have been on one of the victims. She gave them a description that matches the locket you were wearing." "The locket. David's locket. The one they'd put in a bag with my clothes at the hospital." "Did they give her any information?" "No. HIPAA prevents them from sharing patient details. But Mrs. Sullivan..." Frank paused. "She's looking. She's suspicious about something." "Thank you, Frank. Keep me updated." After I hung up, I went to my jewelry box and pulled out the locket. I opened it, looking at the tiny photos inside. David on the left, me on the right, both of us so young and full of hope. Tori was looking for it, which meant some part of her wondered if I might still be alive. I couldn't let her find out. Not yet. Christmas came and went. I spent it alone in my apartment, watching It's a Wonderful Life and thinking about how George Bailey had gotten to see what the world would be like without him. I was living that reality. And it wasn't wonderful at all. I imagined Emma opening presents without me. I wondered if Tori had bothered to get her anything meaningful or if it had all been gift cards and cash. Easy, impersonal, forgettable. The day after Christmas, I made a decision. I was going to reach out to Emma. Creating a new email address was easy. Deciding what to say was harder. I sat at my laptop for 3 hours, typing and deleting, trying to find the right words. How do you tell your granddaughter you're alive without traumatizing her? How do you explain that you've been watching from the shadows while her whole world fell apart? Finally, I wrote, "Dear Emma, you don't know me, but I know you. I know that you still wear the silver locket your grandmother gave you. I know that you stop at Barnes & Noble every Saturday afternoon and read in the corner by the window. I know that you miss her. If you want to talk to someone who knew your grandmother well, who knew how much she loved you, I'll be at Laurelhurst Park on Tuesday at 4 p.m. The bench by the pond. You don't have to come. But if you do, I promise I'll answer any questions you have about her. A friend of the family, I read it 20 times before hitting send. Then I spent the next 3 days terrified that I'd made a terrible mistake. Tuesday afternoon arrived cold and drizzly. I got to the park at 3:30 wearing a coat I'd bought at Goodwill and a scarf that covered most of my face. My hair had grown longer, and I'd started wearing reading glasses I didn't really need. Small changes that made me look different enough that a casual glance wouldn't recognize me. 4 o'clock came and went. I told myself Emma wasn't coming, that she'd deleted the email, that she'd shown it to Tori and they'd called the police. At 4:15, I stood up to leave. That's when I saw her. Emma stood about 30 feet away, half hidden behind a tree. She was wearing her school backpack and the same oversized sweatshirt I'd seen her in months ago. Her hair was loose around her shoulders, and even from a distance I could see she looked thin. Too thin. We stared at each other. I didn't move, didn't speak, just let her decide. After what felt like an eternity, she took a step forward, then another. Then she was standing 10 feet away. "Who are you?" Her voice was small, uncertain. "Someone who cares about you." That's not an answer. I know. Emma looked around the park, checking if we were alone. "You said you knew my grandmother." "I did." "Very well." "Prove it." I'd been ready for this. I pulled out a photo from my pocket, one I'd taken from the house before everything fell apart. It showed Emma at age 8, missing her 2 front teeth, holding up a drawing she'd made. "You drew this for your grandmother's birthday," I said quietly. "It's a picture of a house with a garden. You told her that when you grew up, you wanted to live in a house just like hers because it felt safe." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "How do you have that?" "Your grandmother gave it to me. She carried it in her wallet for years." "She did." "She did." Emma sat down on the bench, still keeping distance between us. "Why did you want to meet me?" "Because I know you're hurting, and I know you don't have anyone to talk to about it." "I have my mom." The way she said it, flat defensive, told me everything I needed to know. "Does she talk about your grandmother?" Emma looked away. "She says it's too painful, that we need to move forward, not dwell on the past." "What do you think?" "I think," Emma's voice cracked, "I think I never got to say goodbye. I think one day she was here, and the next day she was gone, and nobody will tell me anything real. Mom just says she's in a better place and we should focus on the future. But I don't want to focus on the future. I want my grandma back." The tears came then, hard and silent. Emma pressed her hands over her face, shoulders shaking. Every instinct in me screamed to reach out to hold her, to tell her the truth. But I couldn't. Not yet. Instead, I said quietly, "Your grandmother loved you more than anything in this world. More than her house, more than her garden, more than her own life. She would want you to know that. She would want you to be happy." "How can I be happy when everything's gone? The house is sold. All her stuff is gone. Mom won't even let me keep her old recipe books because she says they take up too much space." Emma looked up at me, mascara streaking down her face. "I don't even have a picture of her anymore. Mom says she packed them all away because they make her too sad." "What if I told you that your grandmother isn't really gone?" Emma froze. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what if she wanted you to remember something important, something your mother has forgotten?" "Like what?" I pulled out a small envelope. Inside was a copy of the recipe for David's favorite chocolate chip cookies, the one I'd made every Sunday, the one Emma had helped me with 100 times. "Your grandmother would want you to keep making these," I said, handing it to her. "She'd want you to remember that the best things in life are the ones we make ourselves, not the ones we buy, not the ones other people give us, the ones we create with our own hands and share with people we love." Emma took the envelope with shaking hands. She opened it, saw the recipe card in my handwriting, and started crying harder. "How did you get this?" "Your grandmother gave it to me before the accident. She wanted you to have it." It was a lie. Sort of. I had given it to myself, but the intention was true. Emma clutched the recipe card to her chest. "Can I see you again?" Do you want to? Yes, please. Then yes. But Emma? I looked at her seriously. Your mother can't know. Not yet. She wouldn't understand. Why not? Because sometimes adults make things complicated when they should be simple. This is between you and the memory of your grandmother. It's private. Emma nodded slowly. Okay, I won't tell. Can I trust you? Yes. I stood up. Same time next week. I'll be here. As I walked away, I heard her call out, Wait, what's your name? I turned back. You can call me Margaret. That was my grandmother's name. I know. Dad. Over the next month, Emma and I met every Tuesday. I told her stories about her grandmother, about me really, though she didn't know it. I told her about the garden, about David, about all the memories that Tori seemed determined to erase. And slowly, carefully, I started to understand what had happened to my daughter. Mom's business is really stressed right now, Emma told me during our third meeting. She works all the time, and she's always on the phone with lawyers. What kind of lawyers? Estate lawyers. Grandma's will is stuck or something. Mom says it should have been resolved months ago, but someone's making it complicated. Bob's delays. They were working. She gets really angry about it, Emma continued. Last night she threw her phone across the room. She said Grandma was controlling her even from the grave. That stung, but it also told me something important. Tori was feeling the pressure. The house money was locked up, the estate was frozen, and her business expenses were mounting. Does she talk about your grandmother much? Emma shook her head. Not really, except when she's mad about the money. Sometimes she says things like, Emma hesitated. It's okay, you can tell me. She says things like, Mom never trusted me anyway, or she probably did this on purpose. I don't know what she means. I did. Tori had convinced herself that my will, my estate planning, all of it, was one final act of control, one last way to make her jump through hoops. She had no idea I was alive and watching, no idea that every delay, every complication was my doing. Your grandmother trusted you, I said firmly. Never doubt that. But what about Mom? Did she trust her? How do you answer that honestly without destroying a child's relationship with her parent? Your grandmother loved your mother very much, I said carefully. But love and trust are different things. Sometimes people we love make choices that hurt us. That doesn't mean we stop loving them. It just means we have to protect ourselves too. Emma thought about this. Mom says Grandma was too careful, that she didn't take enough risks. And what do you think? I think, Emma played with her locket. I think Grandma knew what mattered. She cared about family and home and making things with her hands. Mom cares about success and looking good and making money. They're just different. Very wise, I said. But here's what I don't understand, Emma said, looking at me directly. If Grandma knew what mattered, why did she leave on that plane? Why did she go to Seattle when we needed her here? The question hit me like a physical blow. What do you mean? Mom says Grandma chose to go, that she put her friend ahead of her family, that if she'd just stayed home like Mom asked, she'd still be alive. Oh, Tori. Emma listened to me very carefully. I took her hands in mine, the first time I'd touched her since we'd started meeting. Your grandmother went to Seattle because her friend had just lost her husband. She went because that's what good people do. They show up when others are hurting. Your mother knew that. She just didn't like it because it was inconvenient for her. Mom says, I know what your mother says, but your grandmother's death was not her fault. It was not punishment for choosing wrong. It was an accident, a terrible random accident. And your grandmother would never want you to think otherwise. Emma's eyes searched my face. You talk about her like you really knew her. I did. We were very close. She told me things she didn't tell many people. Did she ever talk about me? Oh, sweetheart. She talked about you all the time. You were the light of her life. Emma started crying again. I pulled her close, and for the first time in months, I held my granddaughter while she sobbed into my shoulder. I breathed in the smell of her shampoo, still the same lavender one I'd bought for her, I noticed. Felt the weight of her against me. Felt my heart breaking and healing at the same time. I miss her so much, Emma whispered. I know. I miss her too. That night I got a call from Bob. Maggie, we have a problem. What kind of problem? Tori hired a new lawyer, someone more aggressive than Marcus Webb. Who's Nathan Cross? He's known for going after estates with questionable delays. He's filed a motion claiming that the probate process has been deliberately obstructed. Can he prove that? Oh, not directly. But he's requesting an investigation into my handling of your estate. If they look too closely, they'll find out I'm alive. Yes. I thought for a moment. How much time do we have? A month, maybe 6 weeks. Then we move up the timeline. For what? For everything. The next Tuesday, I asked Emma a question I'd been building up to. Would you like to see something your grandmother left for you? Emma's eyes widened. What do you mean Mom said there wasn't anything? That the house was cleared out and everything was donated? Your mother doesn't know about this. I pulled out a small box. Inside was a bracelet. Nothing expensive, just a simple silver chain with a small charm in the shape of a book. Your grandmother bought this for your 18th birthday. She told me she wanted you to have it because you'd always loved to read, and she wanted you to remember that the best adventures are found in stories. Emma took the bracelet with trembling hands. She bought this for me. She did, 6 months before the accident. But how do you have it? She asked me to keep it safe, to give it to you when the time was right. Emma fastened it around her wrist next to the locket. Why now? Because I think you're ready to know something. Know what? I took a deep breath. Your grandmother wanted you to understand that family isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up, who remembers, who sees you for who you really are. I don't understand. Your mother is going through something difficult right now. She's making choices that your grandmother wouldn't approve of. But you don't have to make those same choices. You can be different. Different how? You can choose to remember what matters. You can choose kindness over success, love over money, truth over convenience. Emma looked at me for a long moment. There's something you're not telling me. Smart girl. Yes. Will you tell me someday? Yes. When you're ready. How will I know when I'm ready? You'll know. In late February, Tori's business imploded. I didn't cause it directly, but I'd known it was coming. Frank had been watching the numbers, and they told a story of unsustainable spending and minimal income. Tori had rented an office she couldn't afford, hired employees she didn't need, spent thousands on a rebrand that brought in exactly 2 new clients. And now with the estate money still locked up, she had no way to cover her losses. The eviction notice from her office building came first, then the resignation letters from her 2 employees, both complaining about bounced paychecks, then the angry calls from vendors she hadn't paid. I knew all this because Bob's investigator was thorough, but I also knew it because Emma told me. Mom's really upset, she said at our next meeting. She had to close her office. She says it's temporary, that she's just restructuring, but I heard her crying on the phone to her friend Lisa. Lisa, Nurse Lisa, the one whose phone had started all of this. What did she say? She said, Emma hesitated. She said Grandma ruined everything, that Grandma set up the estate to punish her, that even dead Grandma was controlling her life. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Emma, I need to ask you something serious. Okay? Do you think your grandmother was controlling? Emma thought carefully before answering. I think Grandma had strong opinions, and I think she worried a lot. But controlling, no. She always let me make my own choices. She just wanted to make sure I thought them through first. And your mother? Mom makes decisions and then gets mad when they don't work out. And then she blames someone else, usually Grandma. 17 years old, and Emma had figured out what I'd been too close to see for years. Tori didn't hate me for being controlling. She hated me for being right, for seeing through her excuses, for refusing to enable her bad decisions. And now with me gone, she had no one to blame but herself. So she blamed my ghost instead. In early March, Tori did something that forced my hand. She went to Emma's school and withdrew her from her college prep classes. Emma called me in tears. She says we can't afford it anymore, that I need to take regular classes and maybe do community college for the first year. But Margaret, I've been working toward Portland State since freshman year. I've done everything right, and now she's taking it away. Did she give you a reason? She says the money isn't there, that Grandma's estate is taking too long and we have to cut expenses. But Margaret, she just bought a new couch last week. I saw the receipt. $3,000. That was it. That was the line. You can erase me. You can sell my house, spend my money, rewrite my history. But you don't get to destroy Emma's future because you can't manage your own life. Emma, I need you to do something for me. Anything. I need you to keep going to your college prep classes. Tell the school there was a mistake, that your mother will call to fix it. But she won't. Trust me, it's going to be okay. How? Because your grandmother made sure of it. That evening I called Bob. It's time. Time for what? Time to come back from the dead. There was a long pause. Are you sure, Maggie? I'm sure. Set up a meeting with Tori's lawyer. Tell him Margaret Sullivan is alive and contesting the probate proceedings. That's going to cause chaos. Good. What about Tori? I'll handle Tori myself. Maggie. Bob, she's stealing from her daughter's future to pay for her own mistakes. I've watched long enough. It's time to stop watching and start acting. Okay, when do you want to do this? Monday. I want to walk into her world on Monday morning and watch it fall apart. You sound angry. I'm past angry, Bob. I'm clear. I spent the weekend preparing. I got my hair cut and colored at a salon in Portland. Back to my natural shade styled the way I used to wear it. I bought clothes from my old life. Conservative, professional, motherly. I looked in the mirror and saw Margaret Sullivan looking back at me. She'd been gone for 5 months, but she was ready to come home. Sunday evening I called Emma. Margaret, I didn't think we were meeting until Tuesday. We're not. I just wanted to tell you something. What, your grandmother loves you. She always has. She always will. And she's going to make sure you get to go to Portland State no matter what. How do you know that? Because I know her better than anyone. And I know she'd move heaven and earth for you. I wish she was here. She is, sweetheart. She's closer than you think. Monday morning I drove to downtown Portland. Tori's new office, really just a co-working space she was renting by the month, was in a converted warehouse in the Pearl District. All exposed brick and industrial lighting, trying too hard to look successful. I parked across the street and watched her arrive at 8:45 a.m. She looked tired. The designer clothes were the same, but they hung differently on her now. She'd lost weight. Her hair wasn't as carefully styled. 5 months of stress had aged her. Good. At 9:00 a.m. I walked into the building. The receptionist looked up. Can I help you? I'm here to see Victoria Sullivan. Do you have an appointment? No, but tell her Margaret Sullivan is here. The receptionist blinked. I'm sorry, what was the name? Margaret Sullivan. Her mother. The young woman went pale. But I thought, isn't she dead? I smiled pleasantly. Common mistake. Could you please let Victoria know I'm here? The receptionist picked up the phone with shaking hands. I heard her whisper urgently into it. Then she hung up and said, She'll be right out. I'll wait. I sat down in the lobby, crossed my legs, and picked up a magazine. I looked at it without seeing it, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. This was it, the moment I'd been planning for 5 months, the moment my daughter would realize I'd never left at all. I heard footsteps, fast, urgent footsteps, then a voice I knew as well as my own. What the hell is this? Some kind of sick joke. I looked up. Tori stood in the doorway, face white as paper, one hand gripping the doorframe like she might fall without it. We stared at each other. Hello, Victoria, I said calmly. We need to talk. Tori's office was a small glass-walled cube that offered no privacy. Everyone in the co-working space could see us, which was probably for the best. It meant she couldn't scream. She sat down behind her desk slowly like she was moving underwater. Her hands were shaking. You're dead, she whispered. They identified your body. I planned a memorial. I sold the house. You're dead. They made a mistake with the identification. I've been recovering. For 5 months. It was a serious accident, Victoria. Don't call me that. Don't sit there and act like... She stopped pressing her hands over her face. This isn't real. You're not real. I'm very real. She looked at me through her fingers. If you were alive, why didn't you come home? Why did you let me think you were dead? because I needed to know the truth. What truth? What you really thought of me, what you'd do when you thought I was gone. Understanding dawned in her eyes, followed immediately by fear. You've been watching. I have. For how long? Since the beginning. Since the moment I heard you on that nurse's phone celebrating my death. Tori's face crumbled. Oh God. Mom, I didn't mean... Didn't mean what? Didn't mean you were relieved I was dead. Didn't mean you couldn't wait to sell everything. Didn't mean you'd finally be free of the mother who was such a burden to you. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Victoria? I kept my voice level, controlled. Explain it to me. Explain why you listed my house before my body was cold. Explain why you spent my money on designer clothes and spa vacations. Explain why you were going to tell lawyers I was senile to get your hands on my estate faster. How do you... She stopped. You've been investigating me. I've been watching my daughter destroy everything I built, everything your father and I worked for. Yes, I investigated. Tori stood up, pacing. You don't understand. The business was failing. You needed to learn to live within your means. You needed to make better decisions. You needed to grow up. I stood too, facing her across the desk. Instead, you waited for me to die so you could cash in. That's not fair, isn't it? Tell me, Victoria, when did you plan to tell Emma the truth about her college fund? Tori went still. What Emma told me, you pulled her from college prep, that you told her there wasn't money for Portland State. But we both know that's a lie, don't we? There's plenty of money. You just spent it on yourself. You've been talking to Emma. Tori's voice rose. You've been manipulating my daughter. I've been protecting my granddaughter from a mother who's too self-absorbed to see what she's doing to her. Get out. Tori's voice shook. Get out of my office. Get out of my life. You're not dead, fine, but that doesn't mean I have to let you control me anymore. I never controlled you. You controlled everything, Tori shouted. People outside the glass walls looked up. Every decision I made, you had an opinion. Every choice you questioned. Every success you minimized. Do you know what it's like to be 42 years old and still feel like a failure in your mother's eyes? Do you know what it's like to be 68 years old and hear your daughter laugh with relief when she thinks you're dead? The words hung between us like broken glass. Tori sat down slowly. I wasn't laughing at you being dead. I was laughing because I finally felt like I could breathe. And that's supposed to make it better. No, it's supposed to make you understand. Tori looked at me with eyes full of tears and anger. You were a great mother, Mom. You really were. But you were also suffocating. You had opinions about everything. My marriage, my career, my parenting, my clothes, my friends. Nothing I did was ever quite right. I was trying to help. I didn't need that kind of help. I needed you to trust me, to believe in me, to let me fail and figure things out on my own. But you couldn't do that, could you? You always had to swoop in and save me. And every time you did, I felt smaller. I sat back down, suddenly tired. So this is my fault, what you've done. I'm not saying that. I'm saying we both made mistakes. Tori wiped her eyes. But Mom, you faked your own death. You watched me struggle for months. You investigated me like I was a criminal. You manipulated Emma. How is that not controlling? I needed to know. You needed to punish me, Tori interrupted. You needed to prove I was the terrible daughter you always suspected I was. That's not true, isn't it? We stared at each other, and for the first time in 5 months, I wondered if she might be right. I left Tori's office without another word. I drove back to my apartment in Evergreen and sat in my car for 20 minutes just breathing. She was right about some things. I had been controlling. I had questioned her decisions. I had offered help she didn't want in ways that made her feel small. But she was wrong about one thing. I hadn't done this to punish her. I called Bob. How'd it go? Terribly. She's angry, defensive, and she made some very good points I don't want to think about. Bob chuckled. Welcome back to having a relationship with your daughter. This isn't funny, Bob. I know. But Maggie, what did you expect? She thought you were dead. You let her think that for 5 months. She's been grieving and struggling and making bad decisions, and now you show up and tell her you've been watching the whole time. Of course she's angry. She celebrated my death, Bob. She did. And that was wrong. But have you asked yourself why? She's selfish and immature. Or she's a 42-year-old woman who never learned how to set boundaries with her mother because her mother never let her. I didn't say anything. I'm not defending what she did, Bob continued gently. Selling your house, spending money she didn't have, lying to Emma, all of that was wrong. But Maggie, you're not innocent in this either. Whose side are you on? Yours, which is why I'm telling you the truth. You wanted to know if she'd miss you or just your money. Now you know it's more complicated than that. She'd miss you, but she'd also feel relieved. And she feels guilty about feeling relieved, which is why she's acting out. So what do I do? You decide what kind of relationship you want to have going forward, because you can't go back. You can only go forward. That night, Emma called me. Margaret Mom came home crying. She said something crazy about Grandma being alive. That's not true, is it? It's just the stress, right? I closed my eyes. Emma, I need to tell you something. What? Your grandmother is alive. Silence. Then what made? She survived the crash. She's been recovering, and now she's back. But you said... You told me... Emma's voice broke. Oh my God. Margaret, who are you? I think you know. I heard her breath catch. Grandma. Yes, baby. It's me. Emma started crying. How could you? How could you let me think you were dead? I cried for months. I missed you so much, and you were alive the whole time. I'm so sorry, Emma. I never wanted to hurt you. Then why did you do it? Because I needed to know the truth about your mother, about what she'd do if I was gone. That's so messed up, Grandma. You can't just play games with people's lives like that. I know. You're right. I have to go. Emma, please. She hung up. I sat there holding the phone, listening to the dial tone, and realized I'd just lost the one person whose opinion mattered most. The next week was hell. Emma wouldn't take my calls. Tori was threatening legal action, though Bob assured me she had no grounds. The foundation I'd started was ready to launch, but I couldn't focus on it. I'd come back from the dead to reclaim my life, and somehow I'd made everything worse. On Friday, Bob called with news. Maggie Nathan Cross withdrew his motion against the estate. Tori's probate case has been dropped. Why? Because Tori withdrew it. She sent a letter to the court saying she no longer wished to pursue her mother's estate. I sat up straight. Why would she do that? I don't know, but there's more. She's declared bankruptcy for her business, closed it completely, and she's moved back into a rental apartment, something small within her means. Is she okay? Financially, she will be. She's taking a job at a design firm working for someone else. It's a step down, but it's stable. And Emma? Emma's living with her, but Maggie, Emma filed for emancipation. My heart stopped. What say? She's 17, almost 18. She filed paperwork saying she wants to be legally independent from her mother. She's working part-time, has a small apartment lined up for when she turns 18 next month. She's serious about this. Can she do that? Legally, yes. Practically, it'll be hard. But Emma seems determined. Did she say why? The filing says she needs to establish financial independence from her mother to protect her future interests. Maggie, I think she's doing this to access the trust. The trust I'd set up. The one that required her to be independent from Tori. She figured it out, I whispered. Smart girl. I need to see her. She might not want to see you. I know, but I have to try. I went back to Laurelhurst Park on Tuesday at 4 o'clock. I didn't know if Emma would come. I'd sent her an email saying I'd be there, but she hadn't responded. At 4:15, I started to give up hope. At 4:20, she appeared. She looked different, older. Her hair was shorter cut in a practical bob. She was wearing jeans and a simple sweater. Nothing designer, nothing flashy. She looked like herself in a way she hadn't for months. Hi, she said quietly. Hi, baby. I'm still really mad at you. I know, you should be. Emma sat down on the bench, keeping distance between us. Bob told me about the trust. Did he? He said you set it up before everyone thought you died, that you wanted to make sure I'd be okay no matter what happened. That's true. And he said it requires me to be financially independent from Mom. Yes. Why? I looked at my granddaughter, this almost woman who'd lost so much and still had the courage to build something new, Because I watched your mother struggle with money her whole life. Not because she didn't have enough, but because she never learned to manage what she had. And I worried. I worried she'd teach you the same habits. Or worse, that she'd control you through money the way she always felt I controlled her. So you controlled me instead. No, I gave you a choice. You could have the money and independence, or you could stay dependent on your mother. The decision was always yours. Emma thought about this. Mom says you were always manipulating people. What do you think? I think... Emma played with the bracelet I'd given her. I think you were trying to protect me. Maybe in a way that wasn't perfect, but you were trying. I was, and I'm sorry I wasn't perfect at it. Why didn't you just come home, Grandma? Why did you have to do it this way? Because I needed to know if I'd raised a daughter who would honor my memory or erase it, and I needed to know if my granddaughter would be okay without me. And I learned that family is more complicated than I thought, that love and hurt can exist in the same space, that I made mistakes too. Emma finally looked at me directly. Do you regret it? Coming back? No, but I regret hurting you. What about Mom? I regret hurting her too, even though she hurt me first. Emma nodded slowly. She's trying, you know. She got a job. She's actually going to work for someone else instead of trying to be the boss. She says it's humbling, but maybe that's what she needs. How do you feel about it? Relieved and sad and confused, all at the same time. That's what family feels like most of the time. Emma smiled slightly. You're different than you used to be. How so? Less sure of yourself. Less certain about everything. Is that bad? No, it makes you more human. We sat in silence for a while watching ducks on the pond. Finally, Emma said, I don't know if I can forgive you yet, or Mom, or any of this. That's okay. Forgiveness takes time. But I'm glad you're not dead. Me too, baby. Can we start over, like from here? Yes, we can start from here. Emma leaned her head on my shoulder. I put my arm around her, and for the first time in 5 months, something felt right. End of part 2. Joy. Spring came to Portland with sudden bursts of cherry blossoms and rain that smelled like hope. I'd been alive again for 6 weeks, and I was learning that resurrection was messier than I'd anticipated. The first thing I did was reclaim my house. Not the old one. That was gone sold to the young couple who'd probably already repainted my bedroom and torn out the garden. But I needed a home. A real one. Not the temporary apartment in Evergreen where I'd been hiding. I found a small bungalow in the Selwood neighborhood not far from where Emma had rented her studio apartment. It had a front porch, a yard big enough for a garden, and windows that let in morning light. It cost less than half what my old house had sold for, which meant I still had money in the bank. The settlement from the airline. The careful savings from 40 years of marriage. I wasn't wealthy, but I was comfortable. More importantly, I was free. The first time Tori came to see me at the new house, she stood on the porch for 5 minutes before knocking. I watched her through the window. She was wearing jeans and a plain blue sweater. No designer labels, no expensive accessories. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked younger somehow, without all the armor. I opened the door before she could change her mind and leave. Hi, she said. Hi, come in. She stepped inside cautiously like she was entering foreign territory. Her eyes scanned the living room. The used furniture I'd bought, the photographs I'd hung new frames. Old memories, the rug I'd found at an estate sale. It's nice, she said finally. Cozy. Thank you. Coffee. Sure. We sat at my small kitchen table, 2 women who shared everything and nothing, trying to figure out where to begin. Emma told me you've been meeting with her, Tori said. Yes, once a week, sometimes twice if she needs to talk. She says you're different now. I am. Tori wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. I'm different too. I can see that. I filed for bankruptcy. Did you know Bob told me? Of course he did. Tori gave a bitter laugh. You know everything, don't you? You've been watching me fall apart this whole time. Yes. She looked up, surprised by my honesty. You're not going to pretend you weren't? No, I was watching. I was judging. And I was wrong about some things. What things? I took a breath. I thought you were just selfish, just greedy, just a bad daughter who couldn't wait for me to die so you could spend my money. But it's more complicated than that, isn't it? Tori's eyes filled with tears. Yes. Tell me. Help me understand. She was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was small. Do you remember when Dad died? Of course. I was 30. I'd just gotten divorced. I was working 2 jobs to pay rent on a studio apartment. And I came to you and asked if I could move back home for a few months, just until I got back on my feet. I remembered. And I said yes. You did, but you also said just don't get comfortable. You need to learn to stand on your own 2 feet. Like I was some kind of burden. Like helping your own daughter was this huge inconvenience. Tori, I didn't mean... I know what you meant. You meant I was 30 years old and should be able to take care of myself. And you were right. But Mom, my whole life just fell apart. My marriage ended. Dad died. I felt like I was drowning, and you treated it like a character flaw. I set down my coffee cup carefully. I was trying to make you stronger. I didn't need to be stronger. I needed to know it was okay to be weak sometimes, that needing help didn't make me a failure. The words hit me like a slap. Every time I came to you after that, for money, for advice, for help with Emma, I felt like I was proving you right, Tori continued, proving I couldn't handle my own life. And the more you helped, the smaller I felt. The more I resented you. So when you died, I felt terrible. I felt guilty and sad and lost. But I also felt, she wiped her eyes, I felt like maybe I could finally figure out who I was without you watching, without you judging every choice, without you being right all the damn time. I wasn't right about everything. You were right about most things. That's what made it worse. We sat in silence. I'm sorry, I said finally. I didn't know I was making you feel that way. I'm sorry too, for celebrating your death, for spending money I didn't have, for treating your memory like it was something to erase instead of honor. We're quite a pair, aren't we? Tori laughed a real laugh this time. The worst. So where do we go from here? I don't know, but I think we need to figure it out together. Not with me following your lead or rebelling against you. Just together, as equals. I'd like that. Can you do it, though? Can you actually let me make my own choices without trying to fix everything? I thought about that honestly. I don't know, but I can try. That's all I'm asking. Emma's 18th birthday was in April. I wanted to throw her a big party, rent out a restaurant, invite all her friends, make it special. But Emma had other ideas. Grandma, I just want a small dinner. You, me, and Mom. That's it. Are you sure 18 is a big deal? I'm sure. Big parties aren't really my thing, you know that. She was right. I did know that. But I'd been so busy planning what I thought she should want that I hadn't listened to what she actually wanted. Old habits die hard. Okay, small dinner, here at my house. Perfect. On the night of her birthday, I cooked Emma's favorite meal, lasagna garlic bread and the chocolate chip cookies from David's recipe, the ones Emma and I had made together 100 times. Tori arrived first, carrying a small wrapped box and a bottle of wine. I wasn't sure if we were doing presents, she said nervously. I think we can manage presents. Emma came last, walking from her apartment 3 blocks away. She'd been living on her own for 2 weeks now, working part-time at a bookstore and taking online classes to finish her high school requirements. The emancipation paperwork had gone through the week before. She was legally an adult, financially independent, and 1 step closer to accessing the trust I'd set up for her. But she didn't know about that yet. Bob was waiting for the right moment to tell her. We ate dinner slowly, awkwardly at first. 3 generations of Sullivan women who were learning how to be in the same room without old wounds opening up. This lasagna is exactly how I remember it, Emma said. Grandma, you haven't lost your touch. Some things you don't forget. Unlike some people who forgot their own daughter's allergies and made shrimp pasta last week, Emma said, grinning at Tori. Tori groaned. I told you I was sorry I was distracted. I could have died. You have a mild shellfish intolerance, not a life-threatening allergy. Stop being dramatic. I'm 18 now. I can be as dramatic as I want. I watched them bicker and felt something warm in my chest. This was family. messy and imperfect and real. After dinner, we moved to the living room for presents. Tori gave Emma a leather journal. "For all the stories you're going to write," she said, "and for keeping track of your life now that you're independent and terrifying." Emma hugged her. "Thanks, Mom." I gave Emma a small box. Inside was a key. "What's this for?" Emma asked. "This house. You're always welcome here, day or night. No questions asked. This is your home, too." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Grandma?" "I mean it, baby. You're never alone." "I know. Thank you." We sat together on the couch, eating birthday cake and watching an old movie Emma had picked out. Tori fell asleep halfway through her head on a throw pillow. Emma leaned against my shoulder. "This is the best birthday I've had in years," she whispered. "Good. Are you happy, Grandma? Really happy?" "I'm getting there." "Me too." The next morning, Bob called. "Maggie, we need to talk about the foundation." "What about it?" "It's ready to launch. We've got the website up, the paperwork filed, the board assembled. We just need you to make it official. The Sullivan Foundation for Women's Independence." I'd almost forgotten about it in the chaos of coming back to life and rebuilding my family. "When there's a community center in North Portland that wants to host a launch event. Next month. Small, low-key. Just local press and some potential donors. Are you ready?" Was I ready? 5 months ago, I'd been so sure, so certain that I was doing this for all the invisible women who'd been erased by their families. But now, Bob, can I tell you something? Always. When I started this foundation, I was angry. I wanted to prove that I mattered, that women like me mattered. But now I'm not sure if I was doing it for them or for myself. Does it matter? Doesn't it, Maggie? You can do the right thing for complicated reasons. The foundation will help people regardless of why you started it. But is it honest to build something on anger and hurt? Bob was quiet for a moment. "Let me ask you this. Are you still angry?" I thought about Tori falling asleep on my couch, about Emma's laugh, about the small moments of peace I'd found in this new, imperfect life. "No, not anymore." "Then tell the truth. Tell people you started it from a place of pain, but you're continuing it from a place of hope. That's more powerful than any story of pure altruism. You're very wise for a lawyer." I have my moments. The launch event was on a Saturday morning in May. The community center was small but bright with windows that overlooked a garden. About 40 people came, local journalists, social workers, women who'd heard about the foundation through word of mouth, and Emma and Tori. They sat in the front row side by side. Emma had dressed up in a simple black dress. Tori wore a blazer I recognized from years ago, one I'd bought her when she got her first real job. I stood at the podium and looked at the faces in front of me. "Thank you all for coming," I began. "My name is Margaret Sullivan and I died 6 months ago." A ripple of confused laughter went through the room. Or at least everyone thought I did. I was on Flight 447 when it crashed last October. I survived, but I was misidentified. And for reasons I'm not entirely proud of, I didn't correct that mistake right away. I saw Tori shift in her seat. I spent 5 months watching what happened after I was gone, and what I saw wasn't pretty. My daughter, who I love very much, made choices I didn't agree with. She spent money she didn't have. She sold my house. She said things I never thought I'd hear. Tori was looking at the floor now. But I also learned something I didn't expect. I learned that I wasn't the perfect mother I thought I was. I learned that love can be controlling, that help can be suffocating, that sometimes the people we hurt the most are the ones we're trying to protect. I looked directly at Tori. She looked up, meeting my eyes. I started this foundation because I was angry, because I felt erased, because I wanted to matter. But somewhere along the way, it became about something bigger. It became about all the women who feel invisible, who give everything to their families and lose themselves in the process, who are valued for what they provide instead of who they are. I saw several women in the audience nodding. The Sullivan Foundation is for you, for us, for every woman who's ever felt like she disappeared into the role of mother, wife, caregiver, provider. We're here to say you still matter. Your dreams still count. It's never too late to be seen. The applause was warm and genuine. After the speech, people came up to talk to me, to share their stories, to ask how they could help or get help. One woman, maybe 60 years old, took my hand and said, "Thank you. My son moved me into a nursing home last year because he said I couldn't take care of myself anymore. But I was fine. I just didn't want to be alone. Now I'm in this place where nobody sees me as a person, just as a patient. Your foundation, maybe it could help me find a way out." "Yes," I said. "You said. That's exactly what we're here for." I took her information, promised to follow up, watched her walk away with a little more hope in her step. This was real. This mattered. Emma found me as the crowd was thinning out. "That was incredible, Grandma." "You think so?" "I know so, and I want to help. Can I volunteer? You're starting college in the fall. You'll be busy." "I can make time for things that matter." I hugged her tight. "Then yes, I'd love your help." Tori was waiting by the door. "That was brave," she said, "telling the truth like that, in front of everyone. It felt important. You called me out in a room full of strangers. I didn't use your name. Everyone knew who you were talking about. I'm sorry. I should have." "No." Tori held up a hand. "You should have, because it was true. And if we're going to be honest with each other, it has to be all the way honest, not just in private. Are you okay with that?" "Not really, but I'll get over it." We walked out together into the spring sunshine. "Mom," Tori said as we reached the parking lot. "Yeah. I'm proud of you for doing this, for turning something painful into something good." "Thank you, sweetheart. And I'm going to try to do better, to be the daughter you deserve." "You already are, Tori. You always were. I just couldn't see it past my own fear." "Fear of what?" "Fear that you'd make the same mistakes I did, that you'd struggle the way I struggled, that you'd hurt the way I hurt." I touched her face gently. "But I forgot that you're not me. You're you, and you're allowed to make your own mistakes and your own triumphs." Tori's eyes filled with tears. "I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby." We hugged right there in the parking lot, holding on tight, both of us crying a little. When we pulled apart, Emma was standing nearby taking a picture with her phone. "Really, Emma?" Tori said, wiping her eyes. "This is a moment I'm documenting it. You're a brat." "An 18-year-old brat who's legally independent, thank you very much." We all laughed. 2 weeks later, Bob called me to his office. "It's time to tell Emma about the trust." "Already. She's been legally independent for a month. She's working, going to school, living on her own. She's met all the conditions. And Maggie, she needs to know. The money would make her life so much easier. What if it changes her? What if it doesn't? What if you're projecting your fears about Tori onto Emma?" He was right, of course. "Okay, let's tell her." We arranged to meet at Bob's office on a Wednesday afternoon. Emma came straight from work, still wearing her bookstore name tag. "What's this about?" she asked, looking between Bob and me nervously. "Am I in trouble?" "No, sweetheart. The opposite, actually." Bob opened a folder on his desk. "Emma, your grandmother set up a trust fund for you before the accident. She wanted to make sure you'd be taken care of no matter what happened." Emma's eyes widened. "A trust fund? How much?" $4 million. The color drained from Emma's face. "What? It's yours," I said. "Or it will be once you turn 25. Until then, it's managed by Bob and the foundation board. You'll get a monthly stipend for living expenses and school. The rest stays invested until you're older." $4 million? Emma sat back, stunned. "Grandma, where did you get $4 million? "From the airline settlement, and from your grandfather's life insurance, and from 50 years of careful saving." I reached across the desk and took her hand. "Your grandfather and I built this together. We wanted you to have opportunities we never had, to go to college without debt, to start your adult life without financial fear, to choose what you want to do, not what you have to do. But $4 million is... I don't even know what to do with that." "You don't have to do anything right now," Bob said. "For the next 7 years, you just live your life. Go to school, figure out who you want to be. The money will be here when you're ready for it." "Does Mom know?" "Not yet," I said. "I wanted to tell you first, but yes, she'll need to know." Emma was quiet for a long time. "This is why you made me get emancipated, isn't it? Why you set up all those conditions. Yes. You didn't trust Mom with the money. I didn't trust your mother to let you be independent if she knew you had access to this kind of money. She would have tried to manage it, to control it, to keep you close. I squeezed her hand. This way it's yours, just yours. No one else has a claim to it. Not me, not your mother, not anyone. That's, Emma's voice cracked. That's the most loving thing anyone's ever done for me. You deserve it, baby. You deserve security and freedom and choices. Emma started crying. Then I started crying. Even Bob got a little misty-eyed. So what do I do now? Emma asked. Now, Bob said, sliding papers across the desk. You sign these forms. You set up a meeting with our financial advisor, and you start planning your life. Emma picked up the pen. Her hand shook slightly as she signed her name. Emma Marie Sullivan, my granddaughter, my legacy, my hope for the future. That evening, Emma and I walked through Laurelhurst Park, the same park where we'd met so many times when I was supposed to be dead. I can't believe you did that, Emma said. $4 million. I could buy a house, I could travel, I could do anything. You could, but what do you want to do? I want to finish college. I want to study psychology, maybe become a therapist. She looked at me. I want to help people who feel stuck, people who can't see a way forward, people like Mom was. That's beautiful, Emma. And I want to help with the foundation, really help, not just volunteer work. I want to learn how it operates, maybe even run it someday if you'll let me. I would love nothing more. We sat on our bench, the one that had become ours over months of secret meetings. Grandma, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you regret it? Coming back from the dead? Would it have been easier to just stay gone? I thought about that carefully. Sometimes I think it would have been easier. I could have started completely fresh. New name, new life, no complicated history. But I would have missed this. You and me right here. Your mother learning to stand on her own. The foundation. The chance to fix what I broke. I looked at her. Easy isn't always better. Sometimes the hard thing is the right thing. Mom says you're different now, less rigid. Do you think so? Yeah, you listen more. You don't always have to be right. You're more... Emma searched for the word. Human. I'll take that as a compliment. It is one. We watched the sun set over the pond, painting everything gold and pink. I'm going to tell Mom about the trust tomorrow, Emma said. She should know. Are you worried about how she'll react? A little, but I think she'll be okay. She's different too. How so? She's humbler, less defensive. She admitted last week that she made mistakes, that she shouldn't have sold your house so fast or spent money she didn't have. She's actually going to therapy now. Really? Yeah. She says she needs to figure out why she makes the choices she makes, why she was so angry at you for so long. That takes courage. That's what I told her. The next day, Tori came to my house unannounced. I was in the garden planting tomatoes and basil. My hands were covered in dirt, my knees aching from kneeling, but I was happy. Mom, I looked up. Tori stood at the edge of the garden, arms crossed. Emma told me about the trust. Ah, $4 million. Yes. You gave my daughter $4 million and didn't tell me. I stood up slowly, brushing dirt from my jeans. I gave my granddaughter security. And yes, I didn't tell you because I knew you'd try to interfere. That's not fair. Isn't it? Be honest, Tori. If you'd known about that money a year ago, would you have left it alone? She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. No, probably not. I needed to protect her from that, from well-meaning interference that would have limited her choices. The way you limited mine. Yes, exactly like that. I took off my gardening gloves. I learned from my mistakes with you, and I'm trying not to repeat them with Emma. Tori was quiet. Then, my therapist says I have control issues. That makes two of us. She says I learned them from you, that I spent so much time fighting your control that I became controlling myself. She's probably right. She also says I need to let it go. The anger, the resentment, the keeping score of who hurt who worse. Tori looked at me. But I don't know how to do that. Me neither. but I'm willing to try if you are. Even after everything I did. Even after everything we both did. Tori nodded slowly. Okay, let's try. Will you help me plant these tomatoes? She laughed. You want me to garden, Mom? I kill houseplants just by looking at them. Then it's time you learned. Come on. We spent the next hour in the dirt planting vegetables neither of us was sure would survive. Tori asked questions. I gave advice. We laughed when she accidentally planted a basil seedling upside down. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Summer came. Emma started her classes at Portland State. She loved them. She'd come over for dinner every Sunday and tell me about psychology theories and case studies and professors who challenged her thinking. Tori got promoted at the design firm. Nothing huge, just a senior designer position with a modest raise. But she was proud of it. Proud that she'd earned it through actual work instead of charm or connections. The foundation grew. We helped 12 women in our first 3 months, found them housing, legal representation, job training, therapy. Watched them rebuild their lives piece by piece. One woman, Martha, was 73. Her son had been siphoning money from her accounts for years. We helped her get it back and file a restraining order. When we told her the money was recovered, she cried for 20 minutes. I thought I was crazy, she said. He kept telling me I was forgetting things, that I was confused about the money, but I wasn't crazy. He was stealing from me. You're not crazy, I told her, and you're not alone. This work mattered. Really mattered. In July, something unexpected happened. I got a call from Richard Bartlett, the lawyer from the airline. Mrs. Sullivan, I hope I'm not disturbing you. No, it's fine. What can I do for you? I wanted to let you know that the airline is shutting down, filing for bankruptcy. The crash investigations revealed multiple safety violations, and the lawsuits have been substantial. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm calling because the airline would like to make one final gesture. They're creating a victims fund, separate from the previous settlements. Additional compensation for families and survivors. Your case would qualify for approximately $3 million more. I sat down slowly. $3 million, yes. I know you signed a settlement agreement, but this is different. New information came to light. You'd be under no obligation to accept, but I wanted to make sure you knew. Can I think about it? Of course. You have 60 days to decide. After I hung up, I sat at my kitchen table for a long time. $3 million. On top of what I already had. I could expand the foundation, help more women, hire staff instead of relying on volunteers. Really make a difference. Or I could give it to Tori. That Sunday, I invited both Emma and Tori to dinner. I have something I need to discuss with both of you, I said after we'd finished eating. That sounds ominous, Emma said. It's not bad, just complicated. I told them about the airline's offer, about the additional $3 million. Holy shit, Emma Sassy said. Language, Tori said automatically. Mom, that's amazing. You could do so much with that money. I could, but I wanted to talk to you both about something first. I looked at Tori. The foundation is important to me, but so are you. So is making sure you're okay. Mom, don't... Let me finish. I know you filed for bankruptcy. I know you're starting over from scratch, and I know how hard that is. I took a breath. I'm thinking about giving you some of this money. Not all of it, but enough to help you get back on your feet, pay off your debts, maybe put a down payment on a small house someday. Tori stared at me. You want to give me money after everything? I want to help my daughter, yes. I don't deserve it. Maybe not, but I'm offering it anyway. Tori's eyes filled with tears. Why? Why would you do that after how I treated you? Because you're my daughter, and because I finally understand that helping you isn't the same as controlling you. I can offer support without strings attached, without conditions, without making you feel small. How much are we talking about? $500,000. Emma gasped. Tori went pale. Mom, that's too much. Is it you made mistakes? Big ones. But you've also been working hard to fix them. You got a job. You're going to therapy. You're learning to manage money responsibly. I want to support that. Not rescue you, support you. What's the difference? Rescuing would be paying all your debts and expecting gratitude and control in return. Supporting is giving you a foundation to build on with no expectations except that you keep working on yourself. Tori stood up, paced to the window, came back. I need to think about it. Of course. Because if I accept this, I want it to be for the right reasons. Not because I feel entitled to it. Not because I think you owe me. But because I'm ready to use it wisely. That's all I'm asking. Emma had been quiet through all of this. Now she spoke up. What about the rest of the money? The foundation, all of it. We can help so many more women with that kind of funding. Can I make a suggestion? Always. Keep some for yourself, Grandma. You've given so much to everyone else. Keep something just for you, for traveling or hobbies or whatever makes you happy. I smiled. When did you get so wise? I have a good teacher. A week later, Tori came back with her answer. I want to accept your offer, but with conditions. What kind of conditions? I want you to work with me and my therapist to set up a financial plan, something sustainable, something that will teach me how to manage money long term, not just give me a cushion. I can do that. And I want it in writing that if I fall back into old patterns, if I start spending recklessly or making bad decisions, you have the right to revoke the gift. Tori, I'm not going to. Yes, you are, because that's accountability. That's me telling you that I'm serious about changing. And if I'm not, I don't deserve your help. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. She'd grown up so much in the past few months. She wasn't the person she'd been when I died. She was stronger, humbler, more self-aware. Okay, I said. We'll do it your way. Thank you, Mom. You're welcome, sweetheart. August brought heat and long golden evenings. I spent them working in my garden, watching tomatoes ripen and basil grow thick. Emma came over to help, sometimes digging in the dirt beside me, talking about her classes and her new friends at college. Tori came less often, but when she did, we'd sit on the porch with iced tea and just talk. Real talk, not the surface conversations we'd had for years. She told me about her therapy sessions. I told her about the women we were helping through the foundation. We were learning to be honest with each other. It wasn't always comfortable, but it was real. One evening as the sun was setting, Emma said something that stuck with me. Grandma, do you think you would have done things differently if you could go back? With the crash. With pretending to be dead. All of it. I thought about that. I don't know. I learned so much from what happened. About myself, about your mother, about what really matters. But I also hurt people. You especially. I traumatized you by letting you think I was dead. But if you hadn't, would Mom have changed? Would you have? Maybe not. Maybe we needed the crisis to see clearly. My psychology professor says sometimes you have to break something completely before you can rebuild it right. Is that what we did? Broke our family completely? No, Emma said thoughtfully. I think we broke all the broken parts. The dysfunction, the resentment, the unhealthy patterns. And now we're rebuilding with better materials. I like that. Me too. In September, the foundation held its first annual fundraiser. It was small, just a dinner at a local restaurant with about 50 guests. But we raised $40,000, which meant we could help more women expand our services, hire a part-time case manager. I gave a speech about why the foundation mattered. I told stories about the women we'd helped. Martha, who got her money back from her thieving son. Susan, who left an abusive marriage at 65 and was now living in her own apartment, working part-time at a library, smiling for the first time in years. Patricia, who'd been living in her car after her children stopped calling, who now had housing and a community. These women are invisible to most of society, I said. They're too old to be considered valuable, too vulnerable to advocate for themselves, too worn down by life to fight back. But they're not invisible to us. We see them, we fight for them, and we remind them that it's never too late to reclaim your life. The applause was thunderous. After the speech, a woman approached me. She was maybe my age, with silver hair and kind eyes. Mrs. Sullivan, I just wanted to say thank you. My sister was one of your first clients, Patricia, the one you mentioned. She's like a different person now. She laughs again. She has hope. You gave that to her. The foundation gave that to her. No, the woman said firmly. You did. You and your story. You showed her that it's possible to survive loss and come back stronger. Thank you for telling me that. Thank you for doing what you do. After she walked away, I felt Emma's hand slip into mine. You did good, Grandma. We did good. All of us. October came around again. 1 year since the crash. 1 year since I'd heard my daughter celebrate my death. 1 year since everything changed. I went to the crash memorial, a small stone marker at a park near the site. There were flowers there left by families of the victims, 87 people who hadn't survived. I stood there for a long time reading names. Jennifer Martinez, 34, Robert Williams, 52, Sarah Chen, 29, David Park, 67, people with families, jobs, dreams, people who didn't get a second chance. I'd gotten one, and I'd almost wasted it on anger and revenge. I'm sorry, I whispered to them. I'm sorry you didn't get the time I got. I promise I won't waste it. Behind me I heard footsteps. Tori and Emma stood at the edge of the memorial waiting to see if I wanted company. I held out my hands. They came and stood beside me, one on each side. This is where it ended, I said. And where it began, Emma added. What do we do now? Tori asked. Now I said we live, really live, not perfectly, not without mistakes, but honestly, with love, with forgiveness, with hope. I can do that, Tori said. Me too, Emma agreed. We stood together at the memorial, 3 generations of Sullivan women broken and rebuilt, scarred and healing, imperfect and trying. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. The foundation had its own office now. It was small, just 3 rooms in a converted house near downtown Portland. But it was ours, paid for with the airline money, staffed by people who believed in the work. Emma worked there part-time while going to school. She was incredible with the clients, patient, empathetic-wise beyond her years. Tori donated her design services, helping us make the space warm and welcoming. She didn't charge us a dime. And I ran the daily operations alongside a case manager named Denise and an administrative assistant named Tom. We'd helped 43 women in our first year. 43 lives changed. 43 women who'd been invisible and were now seen. One afternoon, a woman came in looking for help. She was maybe 70, thin and tired-looking. She stood in the doorway like she wasn't sure she was allowed to enter. Can I help you? I asked gently. I saw your website. I didn't know if this place was real. It's real. Come in. Sit down. Tell me your story. She sat. She cried. She told me about her daughter who'd cut her off, about the house she'd lost, about feeling like she'd disappeared from her own life. I listened. I held her hand. I promised her we'd help. And we did. Because that's what the foundation was for the invisible women, the forgotten ones, the ones who'd been erased. We saw them. We fought for them. We reminded them they mattered. And in doing so, we reminded ourselves. That evening I went home to my little house in Selwood. The garden was full of vegetables ready for harvest. The porch light glowed warm and welcoming. Through the window I could see Emma sitting at my kitchen table doing homework. She'd kept her apartment but spent most evenings here. Said she liked the company. Said it felt like home. Tori would be by later for dinner. She came twice a week now. We cooked together, talked about our days, sometimes argued about small things. But it was normal arguing. Healthy disagreement. Not the loaded, resentful arguments of before. I walked up the porch steps and paused at the door. 1 year ago, I'd been dead, or everyone thought I was. Now I was more alive than I'd been in decades. I'd lost things. My old house, my certainty, my illusion that I'd been a perfect mother. But I'd gained things too. Honesty with my daughter. A real relationship with my granddaughter. Purpose beyond just surviving. Peace with who I was and who I'd been. Was it worth it? The crash, the deception, the pain? I didn't know. Maybe that was the wrong question. Maybe the right question was, what are you going to do with the life you've been given? And I knew the answer to that. I was going to live it. Fully, messily, honestly. With the people I loved. With the work that mattered. With forgiveness and hope and second chances. I opened the door and stepped inside. "Grandma," Emma called. "Perfect timing. I need help with this psychology paper. It's about family dynamics and trauma and you thought of me." I laughed. "You're basically a case study." "Thanks, sweetheart. That's exactly what every grandmother wants to hear." I sat down beside her, and we worked on her paper together, talking about families and hurt and healing. Later, when Tori arrived and we all sat down to dinner, I looked around my table at these two women, my daughter, my granddaughter, my family. They weren't perfect. Neither was I. But we were here. We were trying. We were real. And that was enough. That was more than enough. It was everything. The end.